Well, hello. As I promised in my introduction, I wanted to start going through the Gospel of Matthew with you and show you actually some of the places in the Old Testament that have been purposely mistranslated or colored to suit Christian teachings, and show you that the Christian faith is not based on truth. To start with, I wanted to go into the Gospel of Matthew. And the first chapter, we are told in verse 22 of chapter 1, all this was done. In other words, this is the annunciation of Jesus' birth. And it says, all this was done that it might be fulfilled that which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. Well, this interpretation is correct. It does mean God with us, meaning God is on our side. It does not mean that Jesus was God incarnate. This is what the church likes to build a whole doctrine around, is this prophecy from Isaiah that was taken entirely out of context and was not talking about any future Messiah. Nor was it even saying that the person that it was talking about in the first place was any sort of a Messiah. It was simply a sign given to King Ahaz. King Ahaz, who was the king of Judah, was about to be attacked by Rezin, who was the king of Syria, and Pekah, who was the king of the northern kingdom of Israel. And the two of them had formed an alliance, and they were going to attack the king in the southern kingdom of Judah. Ahaz had thoughts of perhaps forming an alliance with the northern kingdom of Assyria, and was placing all his faith and trust in that alliance rather than putting his trust in God. And this is what was being talked about in these verses. God asked Ahaz to ask a sign of him, and he refused to do that. He figured that he could just simply take care of this problem himself by this alliance that he had formed with the Assyrians. And as it turned out, this was exactly what God had in planned anyways, as it turns out. It's just that Isaiah was sent by the Lord, and this was the sign that he gave Ahaz to say that God is with him. God is on his side. It doesn't mean that God was going to come down as a human being and fight along with him. Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you a sign. This is Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. Behold, a virgin shall conceive. The word in the Hebrew is Alma. Alma, it means a young woman. It does not mean a virgin. This is a place in the Bible that I've told you about where they purposely mistranslated it. The Hebrew word for virgin is Bethulah. Bethulah. Alma is a young woman. a young woman shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Going on to the next verse, butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. And before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. See, this is not talking about Jesus Christ. It is not talking about any sort of a Messiah. This child that he's talking about is simply a sign for Ahaz. God is simply saying that a young woman, as it turns out is Isaiah's wife, is going to have a child, and before this child is old enough to know the difference between right and wrong, these two kings that Ahaz fears are going to be taken out of the picture. This becomes even more clear when you go into the next chapter in verse 7 and 8 and 9. Speaking of the Assyrian army, how they're going to come down. Now therefore, behold, the Lord bringeth up upon them the waters of the river strong and many, even the king of Assyria, and all his glory, and he shall come up over all his channels, and he shall run over all the banks. They talk about the king of Assyria as if he was a flood, if he were a tidal wave, and he was going to take out the Assyrians. The army was going to come and take out the Syrian army and the northern Israeli army, the people of the northern kingdom of Israel, and wipe that alliance right out. And here he addresses the fact that Ahaz wanted to form a deal with these people. He says, associate yourself, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces. O give ear, all ye of far countries, gird yourself, and ye shall be broken to pieces. Gird yourself, and ye shall be broken to pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, it shall not stand, for God is with us. You see, God is on our side is the intent here. Isaiah is not talking about the birth of Jesus Christ in the future by a virgin. This is something that Matthew has taken completely out of context, and he himself purposely mistranslated it into the New Testament. It has nothing to do with the context of that it originally came out of. They just simply took statements out of the Old Testament, purposely mistranslated them, twisted the meaning of them, and then put it in the New Testament and said this is a prophecy that Jesus fulfilled. Jesus didn't fulfill anything. Jesus didn't have prophecies like this about himself in the Old Testament. It was something, again, they just took out of the New Testament, just pick and choose one sentence right out of context, mistranslated it, and then told you that it was a prophecy about the Messiah. If you go back and you can read, I know it's not an easy passage to read, but it'll become very clear to you, he's not talking about any future Messiah. The Christian faith is not based on truth.